Hi, and good morning, everybody. This is Dean Gibson from Adroit Technologies, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the next part 4 of our Adroit project engineering. Today we're going to be looking at setting up of navigation. So we're going to be looking at a few bits and pieces around navigation, some of my observations in the field, and any comments that I think justified in creating your navigation. Shouldn't take too long to cover the topic. And if I can get a sound off in the comments, if everybody can hear me, fine. All right. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start off with some few basic guidelines for navigation regarding our navigation itself. First, a few basic principles, 3 basic principles around navigation. For those of you that can see on your screens there, you have 3 points that I typically like to cover when it comes to navigation. The first and most common little guideline that I like to use is a guideline that says left to right, top to bottom. Now, for those of you for most of you that don't know what I'm going on about here, basically navigation, or the way we view software or an interface, should work from our top left corner, moving across to the right, and then slowly we go down. So similar to the way we would read a book. I say this, a lot of people I've seen in a couple of navigations on site where guys will have things navigation that runs down the side on the left or the right, or something down at the bottom. But if you look at any software package, whether it's Word or Excel or any kind of application like that, this is a good rule that they follow as well. And it also just makes it easier for training of your operators. Would be one of the most core functions here. Where do we start with our interface to our SCADA? So when we design our navigation, I like to follow that rule where we start at the top left. Typically that would have an overview button or a home button, if you will. It's a good rule to follow. Second one that I like to keep in mind as well is no more than 3 clicks from anywhere within the solution. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a good rule to try and stick to. You don't want your operators clicking their way just to turn something on or turn something off or check a value. And I'll show you some examples a little bit later on of what I'm talking about here. But typically, you should be no more than 3 clicks within your SCADA. And then another important one is a standard navigation across your entire SCADA package. So again, this comes down to our standards. I know that for those of you that have been following this little series, you know that I keep referring to a document called the FDS, or Functional Design Spec. And that's typically what I would start off with, is I define a standard across the entire project so that it's not unfeasible for an SI to come in, a system integrator to come in, or an engineer to come in, design the SCADA, he moves on, and then somebody else has to come in, and then they design and they decide, well, that navigation's no good, and we'll decide our own, and the navigation changes. And this just puts more load on the operator at the end of the day. Remembering, guys, that the idea here is that we want to keep our interface as user-friendly as possible for our operator. It's also ease of use for the operator as well as for training of the operator again. Okay, so those are the 3 typical rules I like to follow. Again, these are just merely suggestions. I would suggest that you guys have a think about them. It's just to get your head in the right space, particularly when you start developing and you start engineering your projects. Navigation is one of the few overlooked little areas. We're so busy with the PLCs and the logic behind it and getting all that data around it, we actually forget that sometimes what the operator sees at the end of the day is also quite important, and as well for a successful solution. All right, so moving on. We're going to be looking at I also like to talk about a graphical hierarchy as well when designing my navigation. So typically this is basically just what goes where. So as you'll see here on the screen, good morning, John. Our graphical hierarchy has taken from an ISO 101 standard. It's from a book called High Performance HMI. High Performance HMI. I don't actually have a copy of the book in front of me at the moment, but it is worth having a look at that book. They have some brilliant ideas in it, and I would highly recommend looking it up. Basically, this standard says that there should be 4 layers. Again, this follows our three click rule here. Level 1 being our process area overview. Guys, you'll notice here that I talk about process environments. Obviously, not all environments are process. There might be water, or it might be a batching system, or it might be I don't know, any kind of other site that we're implementing a skater on. So this is merely a suggestion, just merely a guideline. You can obviously increase or decrease these levels as required, but I found that no more than 4 levels is plenty. So as I said, the first one being our overview. So the overview of a plant is, we want to be able to draw our operator's eye to an area that might need attention. You could then click on that area or navigate to that area using his navigational structure, which would then give him his control view of that particular unit. You might want to change the level 2 and 3 around. Maybe you only want the details to come up first, and then the operator has to go in deeper to get to the control of that particular unit. I know that a lot of water environments have that. Rather open up what the valve set points are, and then only open up a different screen. This allows us to manage security as well. So those two can be, level 2 and level 3 can be swapped around if required. And then obviously then we get to our level 4, which is typically support and diagnostics. So this is level 4 is not something that you'd really go into unless there's a problem with the piece of kit that you're trying to view. So the VSD is giving us an error code maybe. Maybe we just want to notify the operator at the overview, listen, there's a problem on this particular control unit. We can look in the control unit and say, yes, there is an error here. And then obviously we can then move into the details and then the support of the diagnostics area. All right. I don't know if anybody has any questions regarding these. As I said, these are merely suggestions. You're quite welcome to increase or decrease these levels, but keeping in mind we don't want to have more than 3 to 4 clicks from anywhere within our SCADA. So if I'm at my support and diagnostics, I need to, and something pops up on the screen, or I get, somebody in the field says, listen, we need to shut the valve down. I don't want to have to go and click a million times just to get to a place where I can shut a valve down from a different area in the SCADA. I want to be as proactive against these things as possible. All right, so we're going to move on to our example here. Again, for those of you that have been following along on the series, I've been using our certification exam. So what you'll see on your screen now is basically my navigation that I've set up for this for my certification exam. This is a custom navigation system, just to give you guys an idea of what we're trying to do here. I will be showing you how to create a navigational structure quite easily and quickly using one of our tools a little bit later on. And I thought I'd just chat about something that this is a typical layout that I would have. So those of you that remember from last week, we spoke about our context model. So the context model applied to our navigation is also applicable here. At the top, we have our different areas, filtration, bottling, and possibly a borehole system that feeds our filtration. And then we have historical alarms and system management. So you can see that within my project, I can move between areas quite quickly. Obviously, this is quite a simple navigational structure, as this isn't a very complex process. But typically, we can just click on the filtration. That would bring up our filtration overview. As you see, there's nothing in there just yet. Same as bottling. And then if I go to my well fields aerial, hopefully this is a GIS, which, as you can see, I haven't finished configuring yet. My GIS map hasn't popped up yet. It's typically because this particular machine that we're looking on doesn't have internet access, but that's fine. We'll just move back to our batching again. Within my batching environment, what I've done is I've set up a hover event on my faceplates for my feeders. Again, we can then move down into our alarm and control points. Guys, this is what I was talking about, where you might want to increase or decrease your navigation. I've made the alarms and controls part of my faceplate. This button I would then assign security to, only allowing certain users into it. So there's only 1 or 2 clicks here. We can then just close this and then move on with our process. I have broken my rule a little bit here. You'll notice that I have a hover on that label of our navigation. We're down at the bottom here on my water pump. I haven't used that. I've actually used a click event on the pump itself. So this is, I'm breaking a rule here. But here we go. We've got our control. And then again, maybe some diagnostics on it. Oh, I see I've got a bad agent there. Well, never mind. We'll have a look. I'll have a look at that afterwards. All right, so this is a sort of a very standard navigation layout, but what I've tried to do is keep it as standard as possible across the whole system, making sure that everything works as per usual. What we can have a look at on the top as well is a lot of guys, what we do is obviously we want our server time displayed. This is important so that we can check that against our local operator's time. Remember guys, our times need to be synchronized. So I display my server time versus my local computer time, which you can look on the taskbar at the bottom. So that lets me know is my operator and my server. Oh, excuse me, we don't need to do that. And then also our logged on user. You'll also note, guys, that I don't know if you can see it. Yep, you can. Fantastic. That I'm also quite a fan of tooltips. So hovering over an object gives our operator a little bit more information around what happens when he clicks on that. It's very important for those. So tooltips, very underutilized within our navigation structure. And then obviously I want my operator to be able to see at all times whether his comms to his device is healthy or not. So currently I've got a good healthy comms there. If we go along and kill our OPC server here and say yes, and then there we go. My operator is now notified. He doesn't have to go and dig around because that is a critical alarm. With that, when the comms fails, he can no longer operate his plant, and you should know that straight away. All right, so this is a typical layout. I've customized this quite heavily, this navigation. So I'm going to have a look at a standard navigation tool within our SmartUI, Adroit SmartUI. So I'm just going to minimize that and open up my designer. What I've done is I've created an alternative landing page within my environment here. So what we do here is I'm going to use a tool that we inside Adroit called our template GeoNav toolbar. What this is basically a navigation page which allows us to add graphics to it for quick navigation setup. We don't want to have to go and redo navigation across all my pages. I just want to have one page that allows me to have all the navigation on it, and this tool allows us to do that. Again, what I'm going to do here is we're just going to change the property here. I'm just going to set this navigation so that he fills up the entire graphic form. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go along and I'm going to browse for my navigation. So inside here, this allows me, we can add graphic forms manually within this environment, or I can add a menu item. This is just a button within the environment. But I'm going to go along and I'm just going to add an entire project. Now, For those of you that were working with us last week, you know that I have structured my project in a particular way using the hierarchy, and now because of that, it's quite easy for me to come in and to select a project using this little drop down box here. Select the project I want, and I'll say okay, and there it gives me all the graphic forms in that project. And because I know what this project is, I know exactly what graphic forms I want to be able to display. I don't need to battle to go and find the things that are the different types of things. You say, I know I don't need my object model, and we can go along and we can take just the overview GIS, and of course we don't need my original landing page, so you can take that off as well. And then I go along and I say okay, and I click finish. And if we scroll back, one more thing we need to do is we just need to set up a default form. In my case here, I'm just going to go along and use my batching overview. There we go, and I click finish. And there's my default form is loaded in this, so that is the graphic that will be loaded by default. I'll save this graphic form, and then we'll just toggle back to our operator. And if I go and open up that alt landing, which I've already got loaded up here, there is my navigation, and I can move through this quite easily and quite fast. So if we go to our pump station, here's our GIS overview, which again, as I said, we need an internet connection for this to get up and going, but he is there. And I can then go back to, let's go to batching, and let's go and open up our alarm view. And there we go. So that is our navigation, quite easily and successfully set up. And that's pretty much all I have to show you guys today regarding navigation. It's a short subject, but I think that it is an important one, and one that I think everybody should spend time with and have some kind of an idea of what they're trying to do and overachieving. And don't, guys, don't make this too complex. Don't make your navigation overly complex. Try and keep it simple for engineering purposes and all of those types of things. But yeah, thanks guys. I think we'll turn it over to the comment section. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to post them now. We really appreciate your feedback. For those of you that are wondering, this particular navigation up here, I like to use script in my navigation. Basically, that just sets the colors of these buttons as I click on them. So that's one of the things I like to do on it. What you can also notice is my logged on group and user. So I specify the group that my user belongs to. So in the case here, you'll see I'm logged on as an administrator, and that administrator's name is called Adroit admin. So if I were to come along here and let's go and type in another user, and I hit that, and we punch in his password. Oops, password. There we go. And I click cancel. Cancel. Wait. I clicked the wrong button. Silly me. Anyway, I think I've broken that. That's not a problem. It's looking for a proxy authentication on my on it. So what we can do is we'll just wait for that to time out and give us a feedback. Anyway, guys, yeah, I don't see any questions coming through yet, so I'm glad that everybody's up to speed. I'd like to thank everybody for partaking in it. Just a warm thank you to everybody. Please like and subscribe and add comments. For those of you that have any questions, you feel free to contact us on any one of our channels. We do have our support lines as well as our emails, etc. support@adroit.co.za. And yeah, thanks guys. Thank you for watching. I hope it was informative, and see you next week.